Hey everybody, welcome to another Goody Reader video comparison. My name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Today we're going to check out the Microsoft Surface versus the Apple iPad 3 with the Retina display. So these are pretty well the latest two models issued by both companies that are currently on the market. We all know that Apple's going to be releasing the iPad 4 and iPad mini soon, but as it stands, today these are the two top tablets on the market. They both run distinctively different operating systems. You have Windows 8 with the Metro interface versus iOS 6, and this is sort of, obviously, there's not much to be more said about that. Let's give you some specs before we give you the 360. iPad 3, 9.7-inch display versus the Surface, which has a 10.6-inch display. Resolution on iPad beats out the Surface. It's 2048 pixels by 1536 versus the Surface, which is only 1366 by 768. Processor, quad-core NVIDIA Tegra 3 on the Surface versus only the dual-core on the Apple iPad 3. The Surface does have a lot of advantages, and during the 360, we're really going to tell you what it is all about. Finally, the iPad 3 only has 1 gig of RAM, while the Surface has 2 gigs of RAM. There's also significantly more memory. You have 32 or 64 gig options, and it's still more cost-effective getting the Surface than the iPad in terms of price. Peter here is going to mainly show you the 360s and show you some of the advantages on both.
All right. Looking at the Surface, you have full 720p recording camera up top with a light sensor built in right next to there, so it's kind of hard to see though. You have a Windows button instead of the Apple button on the bottom there. On the very bottom you have a keyboard dock, and for other accessories, we'll show you that in a second after we go through everything else. On the top we have one of the two speakers, 3.5mm headphone jack, volume up and volume down. Twin microphones, you can see there, 1 and 2, standby button, and charging port with magnetic snap, USB in, micro HDMI, and the other speaker. Now, we also have the Kickstand, and underneath you can see that it says 32 gigabyte. And it's hard to make out, but right down here is the micro SD, extended capacity. So you're actually going to be able to get 64 gigabytes out of that SD card if you were to purchase one and expand your memory. Also, we have this. Now it looks like a keyboard from head on, but if we tilt it, it's almost entirely flat, so they don't actually click or press down or anything. It's more, as I've described it before to Michael, I just feel it as almost like a fuzzy fabric capacitive touch. It's more of just a tap. You don't press the buttons down. So
when I saw you using it earlier, how is the actual typing on the keyboard versus typing on the touchscreen?
It's ridiculously accurate. This is a fully fledged keyboard. The only difference is that, well, they're not mechanical. It doesn't actually push down. Other than that, typing is very simple. You see my reflection. You can get your full fingers and hands on it. I mean, it's very responsive. You can kind of make out I'm typing stuff there. Backspaces work, shifts work, no problem. So it's hard to kind of catch on camera with all this stuff in the screen, but it's definitely something to consider. If you're purchasing the 16 gigabyte, you're looking at just the tablet, no keyboard. You need to get the 32 or the 64 in order to get the keyboard with it.
All right. So the big advantage that the Surface has over the iPad, full USB, so you can plug in like a portable hard drive, a flash drive. You can plug the HDMI out to like your TV. Whereas like the iPad, we've all seen it before. You sort of have your volume up and down. You can hit this key for either your mute or orientation lock. The decision is yours. You have a rear-facing camera as well as the 3.5mm headphone jack and the power button. Nothing really going on the sides. On the bottom you have your 30-pin connector to work with docks, charge it, connected to PC, a single speaker, whereas the Surface has like two on either side. So primarily what we're going to do is look at like the reading experience on both of these devices. I mean, we know we can compare like video and all this types of stuff, but that's ultimately irrelevant. The iPad simply has a better display in a smaller size, so you're going to get like better picture quality, higher def pictures, video. The Surface does win out in the sound department, and that's something that we can't really capture on a video. But what we do want to look at is like a few things. Like we're going to look at the Kindle app here, and we're going to pull up the same book. Now we're near the end on it. So with the Kindle app, you actually get animated page turns on the iPad, but you don't on the Surface. It's a fairly bare bones in terms of like, you know, you have to swipe to turn a page. I kind of like dig this. Single click brings up like the options. As you can see that there's more options like on the Surface, but they pretty well do the same thing. You can change your viewing options. Now, when you change, you can see the text going dynamically.
Yeah, they both do dynamic text updates in their own way. Text will update whether you do black, white, sepia, all that kind of stuff on the entire screen, whereas for the Microsoft Surface version of Kindle, it's only going to work in this little preview box. So you can see here, expanding the text, you can do margins, black, white, different colors there. It's only going to do it there until you apply the settings, and then will it apply those settings you see with a little status wheel to the entire book.
Whereas everything that I did on the iPad, there was no status thing. It instantly changed. So there's like a little bit of a difference here. So funky animation page turns, no funky animation page turns. But you can do like notes. You can do like highlights. They kind of do it in their own way. At the bottom here, you see the dictionary definition, but here it's at the top, and it doesn't really have a share function, which is one thing that we kind of noticed.
Yeah, a lot of the other tablets and Kindle devices will have share to Facebook, Twitter, Evernote based on the device, but on this particular version of Kindle, it has highlights and notes. However, it doesn't have a share option on it.
So, you know, from our experience here, we, you know, for the Kindle app, what would you say provides like a better experience?
I would say they're pretty much on par. I mean, they both do what the app is designed for, to read a book. I mean, you have a much bigger display on this one, but a clearer display on the iPad. I mean, this doesn't have the page turn animations. This one does, but do you really need that? I mean, I wouldn't want to choose because they're both doing their job. They're both allowing you to read a book.
All right. So this is pretty well like what it was geared to do. This is like the main ecosystem here. You can click store. This is how the store looks. When you look at, say, like the App Store, this is like what you're going to see here. So a bit different in terms of like presentation and layout. Both were designed to be like for a touchscreen interface. So I would say Metro or Windows 8 here, things are just more bubbly, you know? Like these pictures are way bigger. With here, it's sort of like things move, but the whole screen moves here. And this is very busy. You know, there's a lot of things happening.
I do agree. It does look like the iPad is rather busy. However, I do quite enjoy how everything's here, because if you want what's hot, you can scroll left and right. You want to scroll down to Best of Newsstand, you can scroll left and right. Little apps for pumpkins and all that. I mean, all the featured stuff. They're making good use of the screen, and they're making good use of the space. Whereas this, you scroll to the left, you're done. You scroll to the right, you're kind of done. So everything's just 4 or 5 things shown at once until you go and dive into a category. Whereas Apple, you get, you know, just countless amounts of left and right horizontal scrolling. So I think it displays a lot more without having to dive deeper.
Yeah, and if you look at like the interface here, it's sort of hard to sort of know what's going on. You have your little icons and stuff, but I mean, this is very clear. If you click on say like the Elmo app versus say clicking on say the Financial Times, just to give you an idea on what's presented in the app.
I do totally agree. I was saying that to the rest of the team here when we were playing with this. They all look the same. Nothing really pops out, and you can't really say which. The thumbnails are really small, and all these different colors, and they're all the same size, and they just keep going and going, and it's very difficult to really know what you're looking at.
Yeah, totally. So I would probably say from like the way that the store is designed, I think I like the iPad version better. It's more colorful. There's more things going on. You could access a lot of like spotlighted premium content on the home screen, whereas like with the Surface, it's a lot of scrolling involved. It's more jumping through hoops because you got to dive into different submenus and different clicks and things like that. On a flip note, though, that downloading apps is pretty quick. You simply just click on it, and it's pretty well done fairly fast. So the apps are fairly lightweight, but I do like when you pay for apps, I do like the iPad way more. It's a singular email address. I'm only signing up with Apple, whereas if I'm paying for stuff right here, I'm signing up for Zinio, I'm signing up for Comixology, I'm signing up for Kindle, I'm signing up for this. Whereas with Apple, there's this one singular login. It makes it very solid to like purchase additional content.
Oh, it's a no-brainer. You sign in with Apple, you're signed in with Apple. I think it took us about a full hour, all in all, for us to just sign into everything, because we had to sign into, like Michael said, Zinio, Comixology, Kindle, our email, syncing with Google. There's countless amount of things we had to sign up with, and each one of those has a different password, and each one of those has a different email, and it just takes forever and a day.
Yeah, totally. So what we're going to do is just sort of show you like how comics sort of look on both of these devices here. And I'm just going to kind of look on what I have here. We have a ton of comics here. One of the advantages inherently is that with the iPad, you actually get HD versions of the comics. And you don't really get that with the Surface. So we both have them in landscape mode, although reading comics is a little bit better like in portrait mode. Of course, you can pinch and zoom here.
Maybe we should try a pinch and zoom test here, Michael. See which one goes further.
Alright, so I'm here, and this is about as far... Oh, actually I can go farther, but it snaps. So I can get to about like that.
Pretty impressive. Let's see how far the Surface goes. There really is no boundaries when it comes to the Microsoft Surface and pinching and zooming. You can basically go all day as far as 1 pixel will display on your screen. I don't know why they did this. They just, I guess, lifted the restriction altogether. It's kind of neat because, I mean, you can essentially zoom right up into something, and there are no boundaries. Whereas with the iPad, you can only go a certain range, but that's not exactly a good thing. I mean, you could kind of get lost if you over pinch and zoom. I find it kind of useless, but I could see some advantages to doing that.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, they both do comics in a different way. I do like the perpetual zooming function on the Comixology version of the Windows 8 Surface tablet. On the other hand, I do like how Comixology does give you the CMX HD versions of comics. So you will get better colors, more vibrant images. Not to say that the Surface stuff looks crummy, but I do think that like if you are into comics, it's hard between SD and HD.
I'd say the extra 700 pixels height and the extra 400 or 500 length really does wonders on the on the Apple iPad. I think it's just, I mean, this is not even a full color comic and it already looks better than this. So not by much, but it definitely is noticeably higher quality.
Yeah, totally. So the one of the last things that I want to do is sort of look at Zinio, which is sort of like a news application here, just to show you like the distinctive, nature behind it. And which one are you looking at?
I am on the Obama kind of preview here.
All right.
Colors are very nice on both devices.
Yeah, it looks like the Surface and the iPad versions way different sort of interface. I'm just going to click on just this one just to show you the distinction. Both of these are sort of like the free versions, so they're definitely not paid. So you can pinch and zoom. It's pretty quick. The colors fairly vibrant.
Not too much customization on most of the free content here. You're going to be a little limited unless you download or purchase books. You see, it's not too responsive. You saw how I double tapped, I don't know, probably 20 seconds ago. Although, remember, this is launch day. This is the first day it came out. I think we're 4 or 5 hours into when they first arrived on store shelves. Things are set to be refined, so hopefully everything will be refined and worked on in the future.
Yeah, totally. So mainly just wanted to kind of show you like how the magazine experience differs from platform to platform. Obviously, I think the Apple iPad's a little bit more refined. So like things are just like popping. Surface, maybe not so much. I mean that sort of is like the crux of like the issue where it's like resolution really makes a huge difference.
It does. I mean, this is 1300 and this is 2000, so it is much, and this is a bigger screen. So essentially you're getting higher picture quality. See, I don't even know why it registered my double tap so late there. Yeah, you're essentially getting a bigger pixel density, but smaller viewing surface, which is just ends up becoming a great picture quality on the iPad.
Yeah, so I mean, when we sort of like looked at sort of like the main interface to like even the story, you could see like how things from like the device to device changes. You kind of got like the full screen view, whereas like here you sort of have those sort of metro sort of like interfaces. And so this is what you could expect sort of like from the reading experience on device to device. Games, same sort of things. They're just a different style of games. You may have the same game like on both platforms, but because it's like totally different operating systems, you just have like a huge degree of like limitations and like things like that. So let's show you the Kobo application and just sort of finish things off with like ebooks here. As soon as I find the Kobo application. Okay, so let's check out War and Peace, 2 books we have of the same book. Kind of funky animations all over the place.
Yeah, not too much going on the surface, just a lot of loading. You can see it's a white screen, and I've just clicked on War and Peace, same book that the iPad was clicked on. And it's not exactly frozen. I just don't know where we are because there's not a direct status bar or anything. This is what happens on launch days of newer operating systems. Looks like it just kind of ended there, so we're going to try to, and we're showing you everything as it kind of happens here. We're not gonna make sure it works. We're just showing you what happens when you try to open these particular books.
Yeah, I got time. So we really do want to show you the Kobo app, but it really doesn't look like the Surface is really liking it. One thing I do like about the Surface is, as you can see, that like Peter here's like smoothly going from like all these different like windows. It's fairly seamless. Like it, one thing that Surface does super well is like multitasking, and the iPad really doesn't do true multitasking. You know, you can kind of like double click here and see some of like the apps you have open, but that's like about it. You can't just like, I don't know. I mean, you can sort of, once you're like in like an app, I don't know. We'll just like open up the Kindle app. You can kind of like scroll and see like the different things that we have open here. So it's kind of like the same thing, but you could see like things are just like nothing's loading quickly, whereas like with the Surface, everything was like loading quickly. Except for the Kobo app.
I've even tried opening another book, and it's not going to happen.
All right. Well, I'm about to give up on that. So, in terms of like these two unique operating systems, it's not a matter of like who's the winner, but what are your thoughts from like platform to platform?
Well, I think based on this review, I believe iPad is the clear winner in this one. But no, seriously though, the Microsoft Surface is just there's not even a word for how new it is. It is brand new. Just got released today. It's not even in Future Shop or Best Buy across the countries or Walmart's in the U.S. It just got released 4 or 5 hours ago. Everything's just so new on it. All these new apps that are just made for this. And we've pretty much had an issue with each individual one. I mean, the game stalled, the Kobo won't load, Kindle has some issues with turning pages, Zinio wouldn't pinch and zoom right away. There's just so many problems, but that has nothing to do with the hardware per se. It's more of that fact that the software is just so new. Everything hasn't really been defined. iPad's been defined for however long. It's third generation iPad. I mean, there's just it's already done. This is just here. So we've yet to see what this is really capable of, because the hardware is there and it does have potential. It's not showing it very well today.
Yeah, all the native apps that ship on the service are tight. There's really like, you know, the news app, for instance, looks super cool. And this is sort of taking Windows in a totally new, unique direction that it's never gone in before. We've seen Windows tablets in the past. A lot of companies have made them, but you sort of get to that point where it's basically, you know, like this. It's a non-touchscreen optimized version of Windows. There's a huge difference between this and that. And this takes development and time to work out effectively. An operating system is nothing without developers. And if the Apple iPad has taught us anything, that if you have a lot of developers that are making first-party apps for your ecosystem, you're going to sell a crap load of tablets. You know, this had growing pains too. Remember when the Apple iPad came out? There was hardly anything available. Most of the apps were designed for iPhones, so everything was like super small and not optimized. But you know, 2 or 3 years later, we have it's in a perfect working condition, and it's leading the pack in tablets. This may come to that point. You know, Asus, Acer, Samsung, everybody's making Windows tablets, and with millions of people all over the world having access to this, it's naturally going to be refined over time. So despite the fact that there's some foibles, there's some crashes, launch day, and the same thing happened with the iPad 1 on launch day. We recognize those problems. So I'm thinking of it as like two unique operating systems, and it's a matter of what you want out of it. You're pretty locked into dealing with Apple. With Microsoft, you're pretty flexible on who you can deal with and what you can install. Now, this is the RT version. You can't really install legacy apps. So if you're a huge fan of like these obscure telnet programs and, you know, games and things like that, if you want to install Diablo 3, you can't necessarily do it on that. You got to wait for like the Pro version to come out. I think that comes out in the new year. So if you want like a Windows tablet that has this Metro interface, but when you click the desktop, you can play like Diablo and Star Wars Old Republic and all that stuff. I'd probably wait. If you were to ask me if you should buy this today, I'd probably say, unless you're a diehard early adapter, I'd probably say no. I'd probably say wait to the Pro version that comes out, because it will allow you to basically install any Windows app that was ever made, plus you could run all the Metro apps in their full glory.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as it stands right now, we purchased this one opening day with the keyboard, Canadian price, BC tax, over pretty much $700. So if you're really keen on grabbing it, get in line now. If you can wait, I would highly recommend waiting.
Yeah, I would probably say, from everything that we've experienced with the Surface tablet today, I would hold off. I would hold off until like Christmas time, or I'd hold off until the new year and get the Pro tablet. That's just honestly how I feel about it.
I would agree. I mean, right now, like we said 1,000 times, it is brand new and it doesn't seem as refined as it could be.
Let's hear your thoughts. I mean, this is a huge issue, iOS versus like Windows 8. I mean, you're going to hear about this on blogs, news sources, television shows from now until like, a year from now or more. So we want to hear your thoughts. YouTube.com/GoodyReader is our channel. Leave a thought on this video or all of our other videos. And if you want to read the full review on the Surface tablet, check out our website at GoodyReader.com. And for Goody Reader, and a comparison on the Apple iPad 3 with Retina display against the new Microsoft Surface tablet, my name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Everybody take care.